Good evening. For our final discussion board, we were supposed to talk about a modern American Christianity issue or a person or organization. I chose to talk about a person. I wanted to highlight Francis Schaeffer for a few moments. I've been interested in Francis Schaeffer for a number of years now. Starting back with my bachelor's degree, I had a religion studies teacher at a secular university who actually had us watch How Should We Then Live as an introduction to apologetics. It was very unexpected and very interesting that she would use Francis Schaeffer, and of course it was very welcomed. Schaeffer had studied and worked alongside of other prominent fundamentalists that we've also talked about during our time together, John Mason and Carl McIntyre specifically. He spent a great deal of time with both of them at different universities and studies, and all three would be considered a major influence on the evangelical movement eventually. Mason and McIntyre are usually more prominently known as fundamentalists, and of course, though, their influence on evangelical leaders later on would go unparalleled. And that, of course, is also true of Francis Schaeffer. Francis Schaeffer had a massive influence on the evangelical movement in the United States and a major influence on evangelical leaders such as Jerry Falwell. Jerry Falwell would, of course, eventually establish the moral majority as a result of the mobilization of evangelicals that started in part with Francis Schaeffer in the early 70s. Schaeffer was characterized as a Christian apologist. He was very capable of defending the Christian faith, and he did it in a way that was understandable by the common man. His work was something that engaged the culture and made it current in application, made it applicable to society as a whole at the time it was given. It also was very philosophical in tone and had a logical setup that allowed people to easily follow it, which is very important when you're talking about people that are unbelievers, understanding where believers are coming from and how we defend the faith. One of my favorite quotes by Francis Schaeffer is actually referenced in the PBS video that we watched, God in America. In the section of God and Caesar, they highlight this quote, and the quote is, "Christianity is intellectually viable." Christianity is intellectually saleable to our generation, and Christianity covers the whole spectrum of life. You need never be ashamed of it. And I think that this always kind of nicely wrapped up his whole basis for Christian apologetics, that it has viability, that it's not just some archaic form of religion, it's not some archaic form of thought based in old relics and old texts. Like I said before, he had a profound impact on several evangelical leaders. Barry Hankins wrote a biography of Schaeffer, and he submitted that Schaeffer's long-term significance is not in his theological or philosophical ideology, but in his reshaping of evangelical attitude toward culture, helping to move evangelicals from separation to engagement. I find it interesting that this is not too far off base from McIntyre's ideas of moving towards engagement, of ending the separation and moving to put the wheels on the bus, so to speak. The event that probably propelled Schaeffer into political engagement even more than he was before would have been the Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade in 1973. His public involvement after that decision was drastically more exhaustive than it had been prior. Jerry Falwell, in his autobiography, just to show the impact that Schaeffer had on him, alludes to the fact that Schaeffer was the one that he read to understand the implications of a society that allowed the mass killings of unborn children. And it goes quite nicely to show that Dr. Falwell didn't enter lightly, that he did look into the situations, and of course it would ultimately propel Falwell into the political arena on multiple family issues. Thank you for your time.